Hello, listeners. Kathy Lawless, Life Story Curator, bringing you the podcast series, How Did I Get Here? A series of interviews designed for people just starting out in their careers, people in transition, or possibly feeling stuck, and giving them access to the stories of people who've been there and done that, so that they might be inspired with some new ideas, or maybe just comforted knowing they are not alone, that everybody starts somewhere and everybody goes through times of transition and times when they feel stuck. Today, I'm very excited to be interviewing Komal Goyal. Welcome, Komal.
Thank you, Kathy. Happy to be here.
Very excited to hear her story. She and I met through the Wise Women group, and I don't know very much about her yet, but I'm very excited. This is a great way for me to get to know her now that we're part of this same group. And Komal is the managing partner at 6E Technologies. But before we get into what it takes to be managing partner and what that looks like, I always like to start with the icebreaker questions. So Komal, start, if you would, to tell us where you grew up, what country, how many siblings, where you were in the birth order, and kind of how that shaped you as an adult.
All right. Interesting icebreaker, Kathy. I actually was born and raised and educated in India. My birth order is actually very interesting. When I say interesting, there is some, a little bit of tragedy there. So I was the youngest until I was 11, and I lost my older brother. And then my sister was born. So whether that has something to do in shaping me who I am, possibly, because I was that one of those little princesses of my dad who got everything by just saying I wanted anything. And I had my dad wrapped around my pinky, honestly, growing up. And then all of a sudden, when I was 11, my older brother passed away, and in a car accident. And here I was, who turned into the oldest sibling because in a year my sister was born. So I don't even know what my my real birth order is, honestly. But I had to grow up really quickly. One thing about Indian culture is boys are considered precious, more, 1,000 times more precious than girls. It's an unfortunate thing, but it is what it is. And I had to not only wear big pants literally, but also really had to step up and say, almost made my parents think, oh yeah, we lost a son, but she's no less. So that, I think that was a big impact on an 11-year-old.
Wow, had to be. Well, and just a big impact on your family in general, so to have such a loss. Were you close with your brother? Was he close in age?
Very much so. Yeah, he was 4.5, 5 years older than me. But he was my friend. I used to look up to him for every single thing. And he was my savior and everything. And we used to do things together. I remember growing up in a place where we had relatively larger land. When we say large land in India, it doesn't mean acres. It means extra couple of thousand square feet. So we had 3, 4, 5 trees, 2 mango trees, 2 guava trees, and a banyan tree in our backyard. And he was the one who showed me how to get up to the top of the tree and how to harvest mangoes. And it was fun. It was fun with him.
Wow. Yeah. So what a tremendous loss. You're grieving the loss of your brother, but then also there's this new role that you're stepping into all of a sudden. And then all of a sudden you have a baby sister and then you're probably at the age where now you're the babysitter or the one
Yes.
that, now is caring for her because, she's come along. Wow. So big changes. So tell us what it's like to grow up. I mean, you're giving us just a little insight about your backyard, but what activities And were you good in school? You know, I'm assuming you said you were educated in India. I'm assuming you got to go to school. I know in a lot of countries, girls sometimes don't even get to go to, you know.
Well, I was very fortunate that was born to parents who really understood the only way they could change our generation was by through education. So a little bit of history there. My parents both were refugees from Pakistan when India and Pakistan were, India and Pakistan got their independence, and two countries were separated. So they both were born in Pakistan, honestly, and both of them became refugees. So their struggles were I cannot even fathom the courage to even talk about that, because I've heard stories from my grandmother about the caravan they were in when they came from Pakistan at that time. Miles and miles and miles of people just walking on the streets to come to the country. The exodus, that's considered the largest exodus in the history of human beings. So they were part of that exodus from Pakistan. And then that family, so think about the resilience that that generation created in themselves. They did not get all what they should have, or politically I can't say anything about that, because India was just becoming independent and didn't have money at all. So they got education so they could go by, but they knew that education is the only thing that will change the next generation. So they were very, very clear about educating their kids. Well, and at the same time, we were, the country was going through a transition where marrying a 13-year-old or a 15-year-old was a normal thing still when I was growing up. So I was in this tug. I was in this tug with my mom, more trending towards get the girl married by 18 and let her be with her family, because the future family is the family for the girl according to our traditions. And my father was stuck on his ways, saying no, she's gonna get a degree and I'm not gonna let her get married. So there was this continuous constant tug of war between my parents about how they wanted me and my sister to shape up. And obviously my father won in that. If it was not for him, I probably would be married at 17 in India and be a mother by 20 or maybe even 19. I still have friends who did that. I really do. They're still in India and didn't finish their education, unfortunately. And yeah, so that's that's what my sort of teenage years were.
Wow. Well, I can't wait to continue to hear the rest of this and how you got to the United States. And this is, when you think about, again, just a different country, a different culture, different hair, all that you've had to, you're brought up in a certain way, but then how do you have this vision and dream about what you can be? So that's fascinating. So I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit here. Are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I actually am an extrovert if I know I'm safe.
Okay.
A kind of twisted answer. So I can be really introvert and not be part of anything if I want to, and I completely shut down. But when I know I am in safe environment, I'm in a place where I can be myself, I can be totally extrovert.
Totally extrovert. Okay. How about on the fun meter on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being a couch potato and 5 being the life of the party? Where do you put yourself?
I would tend to be life of the party.
Life of the party. Again, if you're in that comfort zone, if you're comfortable, life of the party.
Yes.
Okay. How about?
And the other place where I absolutely do not know anyone and I am not obliged to talk to anyone, that's another place I can be life of the party, because nobody knows me. Who cares? So I can be breaking legs, dancing on the floor because nobody knows me.
That's awesome. So then you have that part that wants to get out. And so it's really about who you're around. And oh, very cool. Okay, so then that might give us some insight as on the risk-taking meter scale of 1 to 5, 1 being low, 5 being high. Where are you on taking risks?
5.
5. And is that your personal life and professional?
Both.
Both. Both. So you're kind of all in. All in.
I am. I am.
All righty. Okay. Well, Komal, tell us about what it means. We're going to talk a little bit about what you're doing today, and then we'll get into how did I get here? So
Okay.
give us a little bit about what it means to be the managing partner at 6E Technologies.
So my role I will say, has evolved over last 2 years. I actually took over the company in beginning of 2015, and decided that this company has potential. Um, a lot can be done with this company, and started to build a team. Right now, my role is in business development and growth strategy, where when I say business development, I do get into sales, I'll be honest. And every managing partner or a CEO should be in sales. I actually am a technologist, so just it makes things easier for me to understand the client challenges and talk to them in the language they want to hear. So I won't consider myself pure sales because of my technological background, talking technology with people who understand technology and are on the buying side. It makes it easier for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in a nutshell, right now I am helping the company grow. That's what we're doing.
Which they need. All companies need people like you, right? They need that growth side, the revenue and growth. So, well, okay. So when you I'm going to take you back to India for a bit. When you were an early teenager or maybe mid-teens, and thank goodness your dad was all about, no, she's going to get an education. So what did you want to be when you grew up? So you had this, you probably have two minds, right? Your mom's like, oh no, let's get her married, and dad's like, no, let's get her educated. What did you want to do, and what did you want to be?
So let me just, Delhi, India is a very, very vast country. I don't know if you know, but India is the largest, not only just largest democracy and second highest population, but on the land side, it is the seventh largest land on the planet. So in a country.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Yeah. So there's so it's vast. If you go from north to south, there are 16 registered languages with different scripts. Those are recognized languages. I'm not talking dialect. I'm talking languages, registered languages under UN,
Wow.
and
Wow.
recognized languages, out of which I speak 5. So I think I was born in Delhi, which is India's capital, but by the time I was 9 years old, my dad decided to go back to his native place where they first moved from Pakistan, and he wanted to be with his brothers and mother and whoever, close to family. We all do that. So that brought us to a very small town. Now in India, a small town is a population of 50,000. But when
that's a small town. Okay, I grew up in a small town of Elizabeth, and I think we had maybe 5,000 people when I was there. Now, of course, it's much bigger, but
yeah, and since that town has grown to 100,000 population, so it has doubled in size since I have grown up in that town. But the reason I'm telling you this is so that you can draw a parallel somewhere. So 50,000 people, but still people know people. In India, we know the neighbors' mothers, brothers' first name. That's the culture. That's
wow. Okay.
So consider it Italy. We are very Italian that way. We know each other, and we are the community and the society is so important in our culture. So growing up in that smaller town as Indian standard, my only window to outside world was books. We did not have television. We did not have a refrigerator until I was 16 or 17, maybe. So the only world for me was books. And I used to wait for a Tuesday where one of the shopkeepers in India used to bring books from Delhi. So I actually ended up reading Nancy Drew when I was in my teens.
Oh, wow.
Uh, I read a lot. I read about the world. I read about and India and Russia at that time had really good relationships. So I used to read about Russia a lot. America was not on my in my understanding or horizon, or any other country for that matter was not. And England was, of course, because English ruled India for about 200 years, which had some impact on the country.
Yeah.
But books was my only window. And reading through books, one side of me wanted to be this scientist who is discovering things, because I read about Madame Curie when I was when I was in 6th grade. So that was one side of me who used to think about those kind of scientists, and the other side was that was coming from my mom, that what will people say if I'm not married by 20? It'll be too late. So very, very conflicting thought process. But somewhere deep down, I knew that I am not someone who would just settle and not do something with my life. That I knew. But if you ask me what I wanted to be, I can't tell you. I knew there is something that I'm capable of doing, but did not know what.
Yeah. Because, well, you didn't have exposure to, did teachers, did school talk to you about, careers, or maybe that's not even in your.
No. I, in 9th grade, we had a mandatory subject called homemaking.
Ah.
We had to learn embroidery, we had to learn sewing, we had to learn knitting, we had to learn gardening. So think about how they were preparing the girls back then.
I take it the
right?
boys didn't have that same mandatory class.
No. And their mandatory classes were animal husbandry, farming, dairy. Those were the classes my brother took. Out of which, how do you turn into masters in computer applications? I think a lot has to do with my father's vision. That's what I would say, because he actually gently nudged me. I was a good math and science student from the beginning, and he just continued to nudge me. What is this homemaking? What are you doing? Why are you embroidering? Why are you learning sewing? What is it going to give you? So he would not criticize, but he would put that question in my mind saying, what am I doing? Is this, I can go to a tailor and get myself clothes sewed at fraction of the time that I'm spending. So he started putting these calculations in my mind, like, there is a tailor, go there. What are you doing? So, so I think he slowly did that. He did not push me. He did not force me. He just started putting those question marks in my head. And I'm like, yeah. And you know what? Reading is more fun anyway. So why should I embroider?
Yeah.
In fact, you'll be surprised. I still have some pieces that I embroidered in 9th or 10th grade, and my mom gave all of that to me. And when I show that to my girls who are now grown up, they think that's the best piece ever created.
Well, you must have been very good. So how
Well,
did you get from high school to college then? Was there, it sounds like that's a pretty big leap and very much going against the grain of your culture and your gender expectations. And wow.
oh, yes. So when I would say 80% of my classmates at the end of high school were all sort of getting lined up with proposals, and a little bit of another tradition in India. Um, I'm not expected, at least, the things are changing now, but at least at that time, it was not an expectation for me to meet a boy and say yes to him or date or do any of that will turn into a long-term relationship. It was more of I I go to a place or a wedding or a function and someone sees me and they say, "Oh, we like your daughter and we want her for our middle son, younger son, oldest son." That's exactly what happened with me. There was this family who saw me and they sent a proposal home. And in India, again, at least back then, when a proposal comes to a girl's house, you don't say no. You do not say no, because the girl's side is considered a little bit lower. So the guy's side is basically obligating by sending a proposal. And the only thing they see in a girl, at least again, when I was growing up, was, oh, she looks pretty. She'll make good babies. Is what I now think is the backstory going in their mind. And she'll make a good homemaker. She's educated enough to make a good homemaker. So we will propose. So the proposal comes very formally with clothing and jewelry and sweets and whatnot. So that happened with me as well, which is nothing out of the norm. And by this time, my friends, my classmates were all getting settled in my mom's eyes and going to their future houses, or their permanent houses is what they call it, permanent house. um, and and I was in the same boat, and my dad asks me, what am I, what am I thinking? Am I okay with what is going on? And by this time, I knew that I have to get higher education. I knew, so he started to put me in through what is that called, entrance tests like SAT and ACT. Here we have entrance
Yeah.
tests for science colleges in India. So I was going through those tests and I was scoring pretty well, and I was being accepted in schools, which I had no idea. Like they were, so my father was kind of leading me through that process, I believe. Um, and here I am, with this proposal and this entire different mindset of, okay, I can continue to get educated while I get married. And my father actually, one day before the things were going to get totally formalized, he called me and said, look, I want you to be very careful in what your decision is. One way or the other, I don't want to stop you. Decision will be yours, but you decide what path you're taking. If you're getting married or you're going to get education. I said, well, why can't I do both? He says, well, you can. You are very capable of, but think about a person who you're going to get married with does not have a degree of his own. How much do you think he will care if you get a degree or not? And that one sentence, Kathy, changed my life, because I was not even thinking about that. As a 17, 18-year-old, you do not have that kind of perspective. Kids these days are very smart. But I have to say, not having that kind of exposure, I was not smart enough. I was kind of delusional that, oh, a degree can happen when you get married, and this can go parallel. Little did I realize that the person who has not finished his own degree will never care if I finish my degree. So what support am I going to get? So I was not walking through the scenario myself. My father made me walk through that scenario and visually see what will end up. And then he was pretty funny. He didn't want to be on the crossroads with my mom. He says, and the decision is again yours. You are going to tell this to
and you
mom.
have to tell her, and you have to tell mom. Well, I love that he really posed it to you as a question and got you to think through it, right? I mean, it wasn't him telling you, or, you know what I mean? Because sometimes a parent, I think, can kind of come at it from that angle of, you know,
Enforcing, yeah.
yeah. And that,
Mhm.
but it sounds like that was a great relationship you had, that, like you said, he kept just asking you questions and making you think. And that's the thinking
Yes.
for yourself that really he, built in you. That's really cool. So, okay. So how did you tell your mom, and what happened then? This is fascinating.
Oh, that was, and the funny thing was the proposal that had come at that time was from my mom's side of the family. And it was
Oh,
a big deal, very rich family, very established family. And giving them a reason that my daughter is deciding to educate herself instead of getting married just didn't even make sense to her. How does she go back to the family and tell them this is the reason, right? Because this is
yeah.
so out of the norm, right? And I'm talking you decades ago. And I went to her. I said, I'm deciding. She was not very happy. I would say she was almost mad for me to decide that. Um, but my father then, gently nudged her and said, "You will not regret this. Whatever she's doing, you will not regret." That's what he told her. And then the onus was on my mom to go break that decision in front of the family and tell them that thank you but no thank you, she's going to
Wow.
take a
Wow.
different route. Yeah.
Wow. So that just seems like quite the family decision and ordeal. So then you had been applying to colleges. You got into one then? Where
Yeah,
did you end
yeah,
up going to
yeah.
college?
I ended up going to a computer science college in in a I would say in a state-run university that was about 2 hours away. And uh, I I had never seen a dorm. I had never seen a university. So that in itself was a
Yeah.
experience for me.
Well, how did you
So,
pick computer science, and then how did you pick that university? So, now today, parents fly with their kids. They go see all these campuses, right? It's, well, what felt right? What's the right vibe? What's the right fit for me? You were probably just whatever. I got to go.
yeah, I did get selected in three universities, and the criteria was whatever is the closest. We
Ah,
want you to be safe. We want you
okay.
to be safe. And Safety in for girls in India is a big problem. It still is, and especially the girls who are a little bit outgoing, having our uh, population that is more, I would say, male dominated and has a lot of dominance on women. Um, India, unfortunately, it will not be considered the safest place for girls. That said, so safety was one priority for my parents, which I totally agree to, because the rest of the colleges were at least 2 nights train ride, minimum 2 nights train ride,
Oh,
and
yeah.
this one was a 2 to 3 hours bus ride, which they felt that it would be easy for me to be there for years if I had to pursue my master's, which I did.
Yeah. So how come computer science was that? I mean, it seems like this was, and what decade is this, if you don't mind me asking, just so,
Oh,
because
no, no, no,
computers
not
had
at
to have
all.
been very new.
I'm talking early 90s.
Early 90s. Okay, yeah. So,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. So computer science. So the way science schools take take the students or the intake of students in science schools in India. Well, things have changed now, but back in the day, used to be stream based. So if you want to be in the healthcare, in medicine, it's a different test. But if you are more of physics and a chemistry and a math student, it's a different stream altogether. And then you get placed in the highest ranking course that the university thinks is the highest ranking, and your aptitude matches with that type of course. So computer science was the highest ranking placement, they call it. So if you have scored, say, and so my stream was math and physics and chemistry. I took that test, and the university says you have been placed in computer science, mechanical engineering, and civil engineering. Pick what you want. So I take computer science, and that seat is gone from the university. One student applied and got into computer science. So now they have less seats after that. It's because one computer science seat is gone. Similarly, they have mechanical seats, they have civil engineering seats. So that's how the ranking happens. I could, if I was more geared towards, say, for example, civil engineering, architecting and stuff like that, I could have picked civil engineering, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted something with that will keep me in touch with math and physics. These were my favorite subjects. So it just happened. Is how I would say it just happened.
It just happened.
My university decided that I am good math and physics student. I should be in computer science.
Which is not a bad thing. Sometimes it'd be helpful if someone said, hey, I think you'd be really good at X. And you're like, well, I'll try it. And oh, you're right. Because sometimes I don't know that we know what we're best at, right? It's that core competency that we don't know.
Yeah.
But it also sounds like you had a choice, which is, I'm surprised by that. Because sometimes I think, you take in other countries or different protocols is, well, this is what you scored highest in, you're going here, you don't really have a choice, but you had a choice. So how many girls?
I did have a choice. I was the only one.
Yeah, I figured.
In my class. Girls? No.
Yeah.
In my class, I was the only one. And then another tragedy struck me personally during my first year of college. I was in a car accident, and I had to take a sabbatical year. And then the next year, when I joined with my juniors, there were 2 more girls. So we became 3 of us.
But you're like a year behind everyone, right? Or felt like
yes,
you were
from my classmates. Yeah.
So, okay, well, I can't, this is so fascinating. So, but we got to start kind of going through here. So then you decided that you wanted to get your master's, or how did that
master's was not a question. It was not I was not even giving myself a choice if I have to do master's or not. Master's was just inevitable from the beginning. That if and in India, because education now it has become expensive, but back in the day, it was my state that picked up the entire bill almost for my education, all fully paid. My father had to just pay for my travel back and forth. That was the only thing he paid for. So
wow.
Not taking advantage.
Like a scholarship almost, but it's paid for by the state, huh?
Yeah.
Which is why they probably are like, they want the best and the brightest, and then they kind of place you where they think you're going to be successful. You don't pick, right?
Yes, exactly. I think that's what it is.
Because if we're footing the bill for you, we want you to succeed.
Yeah, exactly. So master's was not a question. Master's, there were 2 streams for me on the master's side. I could have picked computer applications, or I could have picked computer science. There was 2 different streams, at least at that time. And I picked applications because I was more geared towards how businesses use computers to make themselves efficient. And believe it or not, I'm still in that field.
So all these things did line up well with you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have to say that, yeah.
So during this time, did you have access to more career women or more career options? Were you starting to see a vision of, oh, this is what I could do then as a career? Because I'm assuming that in
a little bit, yes.
Give you
yeah.
that.
yeah, as soon as I finished my master's, I came back home, and this college in that town was introducing computer science. So for them, this 23-year-old coming back to the hometown who has a master's degree in computer applications should be teaching our kids.
Oh,
So I didn't even finish my semester. I was back home, and the principal of that college reached out to my dad and like, she's coming back. She needs to start teaching here. She needs to give back to the community. Blah 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 blah. So,
so
so
another
I
proposal
started.
that is a bit about shaping your future.
And my dad says, think of it as a stepping stone. He didn't say this is, oh, this is not, you shouldn't be doing this. He says, think of it as a stepping stone. Sometimes teaching is the best way to learn. I still remember that.
Oh,
Because you have to learn yourself, you have to prepare for a lecture before you teach these
yeah,
undergrads,
yeah.
right?
Mhm.
You can't be making a fool of yourself in front of them, because close to 50% are going to be smarter than you at the minimum, right? So
Yeah.
if they ask a question, you better be prepared. So that also kind of morphed me into a person who prepares very well before anything I get into. Like, I have to understand the subject very well before I can even speak about it. So that kind of set that stage. But I also went through campus interviews during my final semester in my master's. And I already was picked by a large company as their what they used to call programmer one, so lowest level of programmer. But I was picked by them already. So I come back and I kind of debate. I start this job of being a teacher in a college, in a community college, and not enjoying that because I had to prepare so much. There are no filters when you're standing in front of 90 students. There are no filters there, and they are all young boys who who are going to make every effort to derail your lecture, is how I remember now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because these are boys brought up to not thinking highly of girls and women, and now their professor is a woman. That is,
Yeah.
and probably
And
feeling like, and she's the same age as me, so why should I listen to you? So
why
you have
should
to
I
prove
listen to
yourself
you?
every day, every minute of that
Every
class.
day.
Wow. Yeah.
Every day. I do remember my principal telling me to wear, what a sari is. A sari is an outfit that women in India wear, but grown-up women wear. Usually unmarried, younger women don't wear that. A sari is something that makes you look taller, more, senior sort of. So I was told by my principal, you are not going to be in the college if you're not wearing a sari, because I do not want you to blend in the rest of the students, because you're
Oh.
small, you're petite, you look like one of the students, and I don't want that to happen. So that was a standing instruction from his side, that wear
Mm.
a sari when you come to college. So, but at the same time, I had that offer from this big textile company, and uh, and then finally the letter came that we want you to come for the final on-site visit, because we have picked you as one of our next year's programmer. Please come and visit us. And I go there, I visit the office. I love the entire computer science department there, glass walls, and I had never seen something like this. And the vice president of technology sitting in the middle cabin with glass walls and large computers, like those mainframes, in their data center. It was a big company. I'd never seen anything like that. And
Wow. Made quite an
I
impression.
was I was scared, but I was also excited. So they gave me the offer right there and then. I come back with an offer letter in my hand, and I show that to my dad. Oh, here's the twist. because my parents had lost a son. Can you imagine the fear they had of me leaving the state, going far away, which my father was able to overcome, but my mother was not. So she says, you let me have her get the degree. You did not let me get, you did not allow me to get her married. Now you want me to send her away? This is it. So she wanted the the pole in the ground saying done and done. You guys are you're not getting anything else from me now. And then my dad and I sort of conspired, like, what do we tell mom about this offer letter that I have in my hand? And it's going to just change my future forever and ever. Uh, and my mom was not budging. I wanted to go there. And I remember my father taking like real stand with my mom ever in my life, standing up and saying, no, you're not doing this with her. So my mom, I still remember, I'm very visual. I still remember she's standing, my little sister is sitting doing her homework, and my dad says, so when are you starting? My mom looks at him, where is she starting? She's already working at this community college. No, she has an offer from this big company. I think she should go ahead and start there. And my mom says, no, nothing doing. No, that's not happening until she gets married. She needs to get married. And I am like torn apart. What do I do? My dad says, I'm just telling you, we're not asking a permission. Komal, go get your bag packed. When are you starting, so that we can find a paying guest arrangement for you in that city? It was a big city with lots of people, and that was scary. But he basically said, we need to find a way to get you there. And that was one city where my father did not have any relative. My mom did not have any relative. I did not know anyone there. No connections whatsoever from any of our families. And my father then starts making calls and finds out that there is one family that can support me at least for a couple of weeks, so that I don't have to be in an unsafe hotel environment. And I put up with them for 6 weeks, and then finally found a paying guest within my own company. She was my colleague, and she said, oh, I have a room. If you want to be a roommate, you can pay and you can live there with me. Ta-da!
Wow. Wow. Well, I have to go back to when you said you were a 5 on the risk scale. And I think we need to change that to like a 10 or a 15 after hearing about, not only are you, kind of stepping out in such against the norm of your family, of your mom, but the tradition and your country. And I mean, there's so many, and then the safety of women. And I look at, wow. And wow. And then at the same time, we're starting to run out of time, and we haven't even gotten through all the, how did I get here? We're going to have to do I think we're going to have to do part 2. I think we're going to have to do part 2.
Yeah, so this is all still in India. So I'm just telling you how this shaped up. Yes, you're right. I was a risk taker. Now when you say that, yes, that is a huge risk when you know that the environment is not very safe for women to begin with. Taking that leap of faith and saying, I'm going to find my own way. Nobody's going to stop me. But I also have to say my father had a big role to play in that support and standing behind me and saying, no matter what you do, I am behind you as long as you're doing the right thing. He used to be a big proponent of doing the right things. As long as you are on the right path, you can actually be the trailblazer.
Yeah. I think of the words of wisdom that he said to you and to your mom was, to his wife, right? You won't regret that she does this, right? There won't be any regret from this. And then, but he had that vision for you. I mean, because it's interesting. Your mom's like, well, I let her go to school, but now she has to get married. And you're like, well, but once I've gone to school, it got me to another place. And your mom's like, no, it should just get you back to marriage, right? I mean, it's back to the tradition of my daughter should
Right.
be married, and then she wants, of course, the grandbabies and all the pieces that, all the parts that come with it. So, well, come on, we are going to have to schedule another interview, because then we have to kind of go from that first job to where you got today. But let's
Sure.
wrap up this portion at least, because this has been so
Sure.
interesting, and it really, I think it's a testament to your confidence, but trusting your dad, but also that someone had a vision in your work, because if he hadn't had the vision for you, you might, like you said, your life would be very different right now. So
Very different. Very,
so if
very
we just
different,
kind of
yeah.
wrap this portion now and say, well, what do you think has served you best up to that point in your life?
I'm a very persistent person, and persistence has got me to this point. I would say that is still a big part of me, but persistence is one thing that stands out when I say about that. And then we will talk about other things that have developed over time. And now I think those are very, very important as well, but persistence is what it is. And risk taking, of course.
Yeah. Going, kind of finding that thing that you're doing well, or that did you have a confidence about, I'm super smart, or I'm really good at this? Or, how did you have a base confidence level to know that you could be that programmer in that office that you'd never been in before?
No, I was, well, that's another, we will talk about that. But I have to say, during that time, when I started as a programmer, now remember, I was the only woman who was in that capacity in that office. So you can imagine that. My self-esteem was at the lowest, and I'll talk about that, how I got out of it.
But I'm
And my
assuming
self-esteem was pretty low for a very long time.
a long time. Yeah, we need to dive into that. I'm assuming you probably had great high grades in school in order to be recruited
Yes.
to a job. So you must have been
Yes.
probably top of your class.
Yes,
And
I was.
so you stand
Yeah.
out, and you're a woman, and they're going, do we want a woman? But
Yes.
you got the best student. Don't we usually take the best student? So now we need to take a woman. And yeah, there's a lot of,
Yes.
But
then the resistance starts coming from not the hiring manager, but your peers. That's another dynamic you have to navigate.
Yeah. The company and the leaders want to make a change, but the rest of the
peers don't care.
they're all males, right? And they have their own biases and perceptions. So, well,
and I'm going to give a teaser here, including my husband, because I found my husband on my first job.
So he was an enlightened colleague. He's like, no, we should have women. We should have women programmers. Well, Komal, thank you so much for sharing up to this point. We will schedule another time and finish the rest of this. How did I get here?
Sure. Thank you so much, Kathy. It was a pleasure talking to you.
And listeners, as if you've enjoyed today's interview, stay tuned for part 2. But if you've enjoyed today's interview, please subscribe below so you'll be alerted as other interviews are published. If you have any questions for me or for Komal, then please post them on my website, lifestorycurator.com, and I'll make sure to get them to her. And on that note, we'll just pause here. Everybody stay safe, stay well, and let's keep sharing those stories. Thank you.